You don't need a full renovation to make your home feel like a luxury hotel. You just need to know what changes to make. Because here's the truth, most spaces don't look cheap because of what's in them, they look cheap because of how those things are styled. Because luxury isn't about spending more, it's about styling your space better. It's the way light hits a surface, the way materials contrast, and the way every object feels like it belongs. But fortunately for us, you can achieve that high-end look in your own home if you know what to do. So in today's video, you're going to learn 8 ways to make your home look like a luxury hotel. And once you see how these changes can completely shift how a room feels, I promise you, you'll never look at luxury the same way again. So in luxury hotels, it's the bed that quietly sets the standard for the entire room. Because the bed is the visual and emotional anchor, even if you don't consciously think about it that way, because when you walk in and the bed looks composed, everything else around it feels calmer as well. And that's why hotel rooms can feel expensive even when the furniture or the layout is pretty straightforward. And what makes hotel bedding work so well is how controlled it is, because hotels generally have a clear focus on clean lines and general proportions rather than decoration. So the sheets are smooth and tightly fitted, which gives the bed a bit of a tailored base, and on top of that, they'll generally have a thick duvet to inject some softness and a bit of depth. And color plays a surprisingly subtle role here, because hotels rarely rely on contrast or pattern to make the bed stand out. Instead, they tend to keep the palette super tight, often just defaulting to white on white, and so that means that texture becomes the main point of interest. And so your eye picks up on that texture rather than competing colors. And sometimes they'll include a throw or a bed runner, which is just enough to add a bit of visual interest without pulling your attention away completely. But really, the biggest difference between hotel bedding and most beds people have at home just comes down to editing. Because at home, it's common to layer multiple ideas at once. So different colors, prints, pillowcases, or fabrics, and that can make the bed feel busy even when it's perfectly made. But hotels take the opposite approach. Instead, they commit to one direction and they just repeat it consistently. And it's exactly that restraint that makes the bed feel so good. So when you start thinking about bedding this way, your objectives actually shift, because it's no longer about finding statement pieces or making your bed interesting. Instead, it's about reducing visual noise and letting texture and layering do the work. Because once those elements are in balance, your bed feels effortless and the entire room benefits from that sense of quiet order. Now, once the foundation of your bed feels right, your pillows are what give it presence. And in hotel rooms, pillows aren't treated as decoration, they're used to build volume and shape. And that's why hotel beds tend to look fuller and more inviting even before you ever think about comfort. And again, it's layering doing the heavy lifting here, because hotels almost always start with a uniform back row of large sleeping pillows in the same color and fabric. And this creates a clean, uninterrupted backdrop that adds a bit of height to the bed. And then only after that back row is in place do they introduce a bit of variation. So a smaller set of pillows in front adds a bit of contrast, usually in muted tones that stay within the same overall palette, but the difference in size and material is enough to create some visual interest without turning the bed into a cheesy display. So if you start thinking of pillows as architecture for the bed, not accessories that you randomly toss on, you'll have a lot more success here. Now, once the bed itself is doing its job, the headboard is what anchors the entire room. And in hotel bedrooms, the headboard isn't an afterthought. It's often the main visual element on that wall of the room. It gives the bed a ton of weight and presence, and it tells your eye exactly where to land when you walk into that room. And hotels tend to go bigger here than most people do at home. And that's because taller headboards, wider headboards, or designs that visually wrap the bed all make the sleeping area feel more substantial. And that added scale does 2 things at once. First, it makes the bed feel more luxurious, but second, it quietly makes the room itself feel better proportioned and can often even make the ceilings feel taller than they actually are. But I should also mention that material choice matters just as much as size, because upholstered headboards add softness and absorb light, which makes the room feel calmer and more comfortable. But then wood or mixed material headboards bring warmth and texture without needing any extra decoration. And so the key is that the headboard carries enough visual weight on its own, so the wall behind the bed doesn't need any more help. And this is one of the reasons why hotel bedrooms can feel complete even if they have very little wall decor. Because when the headboard is extra tall, extra wide, or just architecturally interesting in some other way, it can often replace the need for art entirely. Because that means that the bed wall is doing its job of anchoring the room, and so everything else is allowed to stay quiet. And that restraint is what keeps hotel rooms from feeling busy or over-designed. And that's why so many hotel rooms still feel calm even when they have very minimal decor. So if your bedroom wall feels awkward or empty, it might be because your headboard isn't carrying enough of the visual weight. Now, I think we can all agree that lighting is one of the most powerful tools for creating a hotel-like atmosphere. And instead of relying on a single overhead bulb, hotels layer their light sources to control mood and highlight different design details. And it's in striking the right combination of lamps, wall sconces, and other hidden lighting that gives hotel rooms that warm, luxurious glow. So this setup here shows how this globe wall sconce with its gold fixture instantly elevates the area beside the bed. The warm light spreads softly across the wall, creating this cozy glow that's perfect for winding down. And by adding in built-in lighting next to the bed, they also save on space on the nightstand, which keeps everything neat and uncluttered. Now, this headboard is framed with hidden LED strip lighting that adds a halo-like effect and creates this inviting focal point behind the bed. And this technique feels modern but still calming at the same time, which is great for achieving that boutique hotel look. Now here, they've gone with a minimalist black floor lamp beside the bed to provide some focused task lighting while still keeping the look stylish. The tall, slim shape of the lamp doesn't overpower the space, and it works really well with the upholstered walls. And then this bedroom blends hidden strip lighting behind the headboard with a small, sleek bedside lamp. And this combination ensures that you have both ambience and usability in the room, which balances the mood lighting with a more practical glow for reading or winding down. And so it's the perfect balance of hotel polish with some home style comfort. Now, if you're not sure what style of lighting to use or where it should go in your room, I actually built a tool to solve this exact problem. You just take a photo of your room, upload it, and the tool will show you different lighting setups so you can see how the mood in your room changes without ever needing to leave your seat. It's basically a way to test the overall feel of the lighting in your room before you start spending money on new fixtures. And to show you what I mean, let me show you a few ways that this plays out in some real rooms. So in this bedroom, the lighting is the same as what you find in a lot of bedrooms. All the light is coming straight from the ceiling. And so the bed is technically lit, sure, but the walls feel flat, the corners disappear, and nothing feels good in here. There's no soft light near the bed, no sense of depth, and nothing guiding your eye anywhere specific. So even though the furniture and the color palette are fine, the room feels cold and unfinished. But once you start layering the lighting, the whole space changes. Bringing light down closer to the bed immediately makes the room feel calmer and more grounded instead of so top heavy. The soft glow near the floor adds some warmth and gives the room a bit of depth, and adding the light behind the bed helps to visually anchor it. So nothing about the furniture has changed here, but the room suddenly feels more relaxed, more thoughtful, and way closer to that hotel vibe. And now if we look at this other bedroom, the issue in here isn't really brightness. It's just that everything feels out of place, because with just a single overhead light, the bed doesn't feel connected to the room at all. The wall behind it looks completely empty, the space lacks any sort of focal point, and the whole setup feels more like a spare bedroom than a place where you actually want to unwind. But when the light is layered properly, the bed finally feels anchored. Having lamps on both sides pulls the focus down to eye level, which instantly makes the space feel more comfortable, and the subtle glow behind the headboard adds some depth to the wall and frames the bed as the main feature of the room. And so now the lighting is creating structure, which is something that overhead lights alone simply cannot do. And by the way, these altered images I'm showing you came straight out of that tool I built with no edits whatsoever. So if that's something you want to get access to so you can see your own home with hotel style lighting, click the link in the description, enter your email, and I'll send you the details. Now, another thing that you'll notice about luxury hotel rooms is that they feel really well balanced, and that has less to do with the quality of the furniture and more to do with how the space is arranged. Every piece has a clear purpose, and nothing feels like it was added as an afterthought. And so it's actually the layout that's doing a lot of that quiet work in making the room feel so well put together. And specifically, one of the things hotels do especially well is give furniture enough space to breathe. So the bed isn't jammed into a corner, the nightstands are properly sized, and circulation around the room just feels natural. And when there's enough room, the layout starts to feel pretty effortless, which is a big part of why hotel bedrooms feel so comfortable. And in larger rooms, hotels often create subtle zones, and so a chair or a small seating area introduces that secondary function without competing with the bed itself, which makes the room feel more like a small apartment rather than just a place to sleep. Now, of course, in order to pull this off, you're going to need a slightly larger bedroom, so this won't be for everyone. Because if you don't have enough space to let the furniture breathe and to define those different zones within the room, it really just doesn't work. So the takeaway here isn't to force extra furniture into a tiny bedroom, but more so to understand why hotel rooms feel so effortless in the first place, which is that they're designed with proportion and spacing in mind. Now, when it comes to all the accessories you find in hotel rooms, what makes the rooms feel finished isn't the number of accessories, but actually how edited those accessories are. Because every object feels intentional, and nothing looks like it was just added to fill space. And that restraint is what gives hotel rooms their calm, composed feeling. So instead of scattering a bunch of small decor pieces throughout the room, hotels tend to rely on a few larger elements with real visual weight. Reason for that is simple. A full-height mirror, a substantial piece of artwork, or a distinctive lamp can do far more than multiple smaller items that are spread around the space. Because these pieces anchor the room and tell your eye exactly where to look. And mirrors are a really good example of this approach. In hotels, mirrors are often oversized or integrated right into the architecture, which makes the room feel brighter and more open without drawing attention to the mirror itself. And artwork works the exact same way. One large piece above the bed or along a main wall creates a focal point and makes the room feel complete without adding any clutter. But the key difference is that at home, people often try to decorate everywhere all at once, and that usually dilutes the impact of each piece and just makes your room feel busy. But hotels are doing the opposite. They choose fewer items, give them space, and let them breathe. And when accessories are curated this way, the room feels thoughtful, which is exactly what creates that quiet hotel-like finish. But nothing says hotel luxury like dramatic curtains, because luxury hotels almost always use floor-to-ceiling treatments to frame windows and soften the incoming natural light. And even in simple rooms, the right curtains instantly create height, elegance, and that signature 5-star atmosphere. And one thing you'll notice is that hotels treat windows as architectural features, not as afterthoughts. And so the curtains they choose for those windows typically run from floor to ceiling, which elongate the walls and make the room feel taller. And that uninterrupted vertical line is subtle, but it also changes how the entire room feels, because short curtains or exposed window frames tend to break that flow and make a space feel more casual and less high-end. And unsurprisingly, layering plays a role here too. A sheer inner layer filters the daylight and keeps the room feeling soft during the day, while heavier outer curtains block light at night and add a bit of weight to the space. And this combination is all about control, because it allows the room to work just as well in the morning as it does late at night. So what's important to notice here is that hotels rarely leave windows visually exposed, even when you've got a great view. And that's because the fabric itself adds a sense of permanence and completeness to the room. And so if your bedroom at home ever feels a little bare or unfinished, full height curtains are one of the simplest ways to make it feel more complete without changing any furniture at all. Now, number 8 on this list is rugs, because rugs aren't just for comfort underfoot. They also frame the bed, add some texture, and just tie all the furniture in your room together. And a well-placed rug can really make your bedroom feel layered and polished. And if you're in a hotel room with a rug, you're gonna notice that the rug is large. You know, it's gonna extend well beyond the bed, reaching past the nightstands and often into the seating area nearby. And that extra coverage is what makes the space feel so cohesive, because then the bed, the furniture, and the circulation all around it read as part of the same zone instead of separate pieces placed on the floor. But you'll also notice that the material and pattern of that rug tends to be understated. You know, hotels use rugs to add warmth and texture to a room, but not to introduce visual noise. And so subtle patterns, muted colors, and softer materials keep the focus on the overall atmosphere rather than the rug itself. And so the rug is supporting the room rather than competing with it. And so with all this in mind, where so many bedrooms fail is when it comes to scale. Because a rug that's too small just breaks your room into fragments and makes everything feel a little bit off, even if you can't immediately explain why. But when the rug is large enough to comfortably anchor the bed and the surrounding furniture, the room suddenly feels grounded and actually finished. And so it's one of those details that you don't consciously notice when it's right, but the absence is obvious the moment it's wrong. So now you know how to make your home look and feel like a luxury hotel. But if you're serious about taking your home to the next level, you're gonna need to dive deeper into lighting, because pound for pound, lighting is one of the most impactful areas of interior design. So watch this video next, where I'll share a lighting framework that will not only teach you how interior designers approach lighting on every project, but it'll also show you exactly how to take the lighting in your own home from average to downright beautiful. I'll see you there.